everyone, Charlie Webster here. Thanks so much for joining us for a new episode of My Sporting Mind. We're proudly supported by sportinglife.com, the home of expert analysis and insight for racing, football, golf, and so much more. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Britain's leading high jumper, Morgan Lake, to the podcast. Morgan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to see you, and thanks for joining us. I know you just got back from training.
Yeah.
So my first question, I'm going to go straight in because how are you doing in terms of the fact that you had Tokyo 2020, which I'm sure you've been asked and talked about a lot, because obviously that was postponed and now it's hopefully 2021.
Hopefully.
But you also just had the indoor championships postponed as well, which you were training for. So how are you dealing with those goalposts shifting all the time?
Yeah, it's been hard. It has been really hard. I think last year it was also novel, and it got to the point where you could see the pandemic was just getting worse and worse around the world. And for me, and I think a lot of athletes, we were just like, the Olympics has to be cancelled. There's absolutely no way it can happen. Obviously, we've trained so hard for however many years, 4 years since Rio. We were like, at the end of the day, like, public health is way more important, and we'd rather do our part in like keeping everyone healthy and safe. Then also the other side of it was like, once we found out we were going to be in lockdown, our training was in our back gardens. We had no access to track, no access to any facilities, and we were like, we're preparing to have the biggest competition of our lives, and our training is done in our back garden. We were just like, this is just not what the Olympics is about. It's not. It's meant to be a level playing field. Everyone able to train in kind of like the same conditions and have the same opportunities. And yeah, it just didn't make any sense that some countries are being completely locked down. Some people can even leave their houses, whereas some people, like in Australia, say, have full access to training facilities. So I think once that was announced and that was postponed for the following year, we almost were like, okay, this is all right. We're just going to have to lock down and just do whatever we can, and just hope that we have a summer season. I think that's our first thing. We're like, oh, we might get some competitions in the summer. That kind of happened in a way, and then we were like, right, everything is geared towards indoor season. So started my winter training, which is never fun. It's all the hard grass stuff, like the hills, the circuits, the longer runs. But luckily enough, we got back to our normal setups with like my coach and my training partners and physios and stuff. So training this winter was great. And I was meant to open up my indoor season the Sunday just gone, and 2 days before the championship, or 2 days before the competition, we got told that, we got told that the British Championships were going to be cancelled. They were set to be held in Glasgow on like the end of February. So that was cancelled, and it was funny because I was on the phone to my dad and I called him and I was like, Dad, they've cancelled the British Championships. And he was like, well, it's just like one of those things, it was probably going to happen anyway, and just had a long conversation about that. And then I hung up the phone. I was like, too far, I've still got a few more competitions left in the UK, that's fine. So hung up the phone. Then I saw a tweet from England Athletics saying that they were cancelling their events. And I was like, Dad, my second competition's been cancelled. And he was like, right, okay, it's fine. You've still got one this weekend, like just everything you can, just treat it as a championships. And I was like, okay, came off the phone. And then I got another email saying the competition this weekend had been cancelled as well. I just lost it. I was like, it's just so hard training for a goal which can just get taken at any minute. And it's one of the things we have never really had before. I think beforehand you wouldn't do a competition, say you were injured, so you have to miss a competition, but that was kind of like on your back, whereas this just feels like a bit of a help situation, like at any minute it could be cancelled. So yeah, it's been hard.
I can imagine it must be so frustrating. And I know you were saying you're on the phone to Dad, and I mean, I was smiling, you were smiling, but I can imagine in all seriousness it wasn't really how you felt inside. What was you how did you feel, I suppose?
It was funny at the beginning because I was just like, this is just a joke, like, and then it got to the point a few hours later in the day, and I was overcome with sadness because I was like, I've prepared so well for these competitions, and for them to just be cancelled was really hard, especially seeing a lot of other sports go ahead as planned in the UK. Obviously, I understand that like health and well-being and safety is the most important thing, but it almost was like they hadn't thought of a plan B. I think that was the most frustrating thing that most of the athletes have seen. It's like we train, so basically the competition was meant to be in my training center, which is they've tried so hard to make it a secure environment, and we have to have like temperature checks every day and questionnaires and COVID tests, so it's really, really secure, and that was where the competition was meant to be. So we kind of thought it was definitely going to happen because they tried so hard to make it secure, and it was like last minute just written off. So yeah, that was quite disappointing, quite sad. And yeah, I just had the weekend, I was just like, am I going to have an indoor season? I think especially in terms of training, it's hard as well, because like I'd peaked to compete on Sunday and my body was ready to compete, and it's like, right, okay, now I can't. So it's almost like I've missed a few sessions because I had a bit of a lighter training week. So then my coach was like, well, we'll just have to do a mock competition on the Monday, which it's great, it's fun, but it's not a competition, it's not real. So yeah, at the moment we're just trying to get some competitions planned. There are some competitions in Europe which I could go to, but the reason I'd chosen to do a UK season was because just to eliminate that risk of traveling. Yeah.
And you mentioned peaking in performance, because that's something I was so intrigued by, because how on earth do you manage your peaking in the performance when your competitions are dropping, and yet you said it in your own words, like you've got the biggest tournament of your life coming up?
It's really like I mean, I feel sorry for my coach as well. I obviously have to do our training program, and he doesn't know when to push us, just in case we get told there's a competition, all right, we've just moved the competition to this weekend, or when to like taper us off and back us off so that we can compete. And that's the hard thing as well. And it's physically, but it's also mentally. Like I had so mentally prepared for this competition, doing the visualizations every night and just really getting into the mode of onto the competition mode, and for that to just be taken away, it was really hard, because I was just like, I've put so much effort into getting myself, like my mind and my body, ready for this competition just for it to be cancelled. So yeah, I think that was a really big part of it as well, the emotional part of it.
How do you make sure you reset that mindset then, so you can compete in hopefully what's next, and then hopefully Tokyo?
Yeah, so I've got a mental performance coach who I was introduced to by Red Bull, and she's been an absolute godsend. Like she's helped me so much, especially like obviously during the pandemic, and just keeping myself motivated really, like along this time. She kind of said, obviously I put so much effort in the last few weeks getting ready for my first competition. So she was like, give yourself the weekend off. Just don't think about next week. Don't think about the competitions coming up. Just like allow yourself to kind of like reset, and just so I'm not all firing and just like, just getting anxious and getting like worried and just angry about things. She was like, just allow yourself to have a reset, just like read a book and just get your mind away from like almost like the athlete brain. So that was really helpful, and I kind of felt a lot more refreshed going into this week, and just kind of knowing that competitions are going to happen hopefully at some point. That was kind of the main thing. It's just knowing that you haven't done all this work for no reason. Like there will hopefully be some competitions soon.
Yeah, because I can imagine it's so much pent up emotion, and you're getting your nerves ready, your adrenaline and everything you need to be able to do that competition. And then when it's not there, it's almost like, what do you do with that? You said like the athlete brain.
Yeah.
Do you kind of split the athlete brain and your personal brain up a little bit?
Yeah, I do. I think that's one thing she taught me, and it's been really helpful. Just kind of like not just kind of responding to things in the same way, just kind of like having two kind of mindsets has been really important. I think it's quite good to like, just when I'm looking over my sessions and stuff, and like doing feedback and from sessions from competitions, I find that really useful.
Are you quite hard on yourself then in terms of feedback?
I've got better.
You kind of nodded your head.
Yeah, when I was younger, it was I was really hard on myself. But I've definitely got better as the years have gone by. Yeah.
And what's the most important thing, do you think, the mind coach that you're working with, your performance mind coach, is implemented in you as an athlete, firstly?
I think the most important thing has probably been like to control the controllables, and that's been like a really, really big thing this year, obviously, when things aren't going to plan in terms of what you can't, things can't be going to plan. So it's kind of reacting to things that I can control has been important. So like the fact that this competition was cancelled, like obviously it's completely out of my control, so it's like, okay, what can I do to make sure that I'm prepared, and like in case there's another competition coming up. So yeah, that's probably been the most important thing.
That's actually something I use all the time in my life, and I'm not a professional athlete anyway, because I think it really helps to go, okay, I can't control this, but I can control, how I train, or how I get up the next morning, or the mood I'm in, and blah blah blah. And what about the most important thing you think you've kind of put in your own personal life that she's helped you work through?
Again, I don't want to say the same thing, but again, it is that same thing.
Okay.
It's that
Yeah.
it's being able to have control over your life, and not just reacting to things, which like, yeah, I think reacting to things were the most important thing. Like I used to just react to things quite quickly, and it's kind of, yeah, looking at the bigger picture and just controlling what I can.
Yeah. Do you find that you get anxiety or nerves around things that aren't in control?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, in kind of like both the personal and athlete setting, I found that. So yeah, like I always like to be the person to, like, say I've got a local competition, I'm like, right, I want to drive myself there and just kind of prepare myself as much as I can. So yeah, I think I've definitely growing better with that as well.
And what about dealing with in things in competition where things don't go your way? I remember watching you in Doha, and you know what I'm going to say, and you basically, I think you tore your number off, and you could see how upset and annoyed and angry you were.
Yeah.
What were you feeling through those moments, and what have you learned from that?
Yeah, Doha was a weird one. Looking back at it, like I'd had quite a turbulent year, just those things that happened personally and in my like athletic career as well. And looking back, I'm like, oh, I just wish I hadn't gone to that competition. So I put
Really?
way too much pressure on myself to perform at that competition, where in hindsight I was definitely not in form or in shape to probably even make the finals. So yeah, that was a weird one. I think I reacted because I was just like already in that heightened emotional state where I was just like, everything's just going wrong. But normally when competitions don't go to plan, yeah, it is hard because obviously you put so much effort into competitions. But then looking back at all the competitions that probably haven't gone to plan, obviously not every single one, but the majority of them, I can kind of look back and think I probably wasn't best prepared for that competition. But that's something you don't really see in the moment. In the moment you think every single competition is going to go well. Especially I definitely did when I was younger. I just thought every competition I would get a PB. But yeah, unfortunately it doesn't work that way.
And you were saying about the ones that didn't always go that well. What do you think you've learned along the way with those? I mean, when you look back at, say, Rio, which you did incredibly well at, you got a PB there, and then you look at Doha, which is interesting because it's almost like you can put that into context now, because you said you'd got other stuff going on in your life and you weren't best prepared. What do you learn from those moments?
I think so. Yeah, even like looking back at Rio, I was just so happy to be there. I think I didn't put any pressure on myself. I was like, I just want, well, I did. I kind of did. I was like, I just want to go make the final, which obviously is pressurizing in itself. But
there was almost no expectation on you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas with Doha, I just put so much pressure on myself to perform. I think almost because I knew that I hadn't done the work for it. And I was just like, anything I can to get me through to that final, and just kind of went in with quite like a tense attitude, like a tense, just been tense about it. So I think I learned from both of those situations is, as long as like you just know you've done everything you can do, and obviously there's someone's going to have injuries, sometimes there's going to be reasons that you can't, but just never going into competitions feeling like you're lacking, because you've already put yourself down a level then. So yeah, just kind of like going to competitions and just thinking, right, I've done everything I can do, so just kind of enjoy it. There's nothing more I can do now, so just enjoy it and give it your best, and just do whatever you can on the day.
How do you deal with that pressure and expectation? Because there's a lot of talk about kind of you and what's expected of you, and this rising star, and what we're potentially going to see in Tokyo.
I've definitely got a lot better at dealing with the pressure, and I guess the way of doing it is just like not thinking about it and just
until I bring it up.
Just saying there is no pressure, and just kind of think, like only again back to the control element of it. It's like I'm going to do everything I can do to get myself into the best position, and if that doesn't bring the best out of me, and then like there's nothing else I could have done. So for me, I'm just going to do everything I can do to put myself in the best position I can be, and just enjoy it really.
And tell us about visualization and some of the work you've been doing around that, and what you actually visualize and what that looks like.
I think it's one of the things that I've been doing for the majority of my life anyway. I've always been
really,
and I don't really know why I ever even started it. It was just one of those things, like when I was younger, I could clearly remember going to competitions and just kind of like falling asleep in the car, but just visualizing all my events. So obviously I was a heptathlete when I was younger, so I kind of like go through all the events in my head, and like the track and like the crowd and everything, and like really got all the emotions in. So it's something I've been doing from like a really young age, and I find it's great, especially when you know what the arena is going to look like and what the track looks like, because then you can really put yourself into that position. So so for the high jump, I just visualize myself obviously like clearing the bar, go through my run up, and it's quite clear. And I think that's one of the things going into competition I just do so much more of, and that's kind of when I know I'm getting into competition phase, when I just keep rehearsing my run up, rehearsing the jump.
Do you think it makes a difference to visualize yourself winning and clearing, and do you think it kind of sets your mind up to do that with your body? Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. I feel like it definitely does help. It just kind of gets your body into the state that it's already been there before and it's already done it, and I guess I kind of use it to help any sort of like competition anxiety, just so I kind of feel like I've been here before, I've done it before, and it went well. I think that's probably the main point of it for me.
I think it's interesting as well that you don't just, because when I asked you, I was thinking more of you visualizing running up and claiming the bar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about the fact that you'd visualize the crowd and the arena and the track and the you know, how much does that help? Does it just help when you kind of walk in, you're not, oh my god, there's so many people, or
I guess there's that as well. I'm not really sure why that comes into play. It's weird, because I remember, I don't even know if this is true or not, but I remember hearing that Jessica Ennis never wanted to go into the stadium before a major championship, because she just wanted to kind of get in there on the day and just feel the emotions fresh, rather than already be there and know what it looks like and know the crowd is. And I always found that really interesting, because I just kind of thought every athlete thought the same way, and it's so interesting to know that so many athletes just go about competitions so differently. So
do you think it influences you then in terms of the emotion in that stadium and the crowd?
I guess It allows you to not get distracted by the stadium and by the crowd. And obviously you can use the crowd, like for high jump it's amazing to have a crowd because you get the claps and you get the atmosphere, and that kind of brings that extra level in competition. Obviously, like if you're going to a stadium and not expecting it to be completely packed out and like really loud, and you kind of just get encompassed by the atmosphere rather than what you're out there to do. So yeah, I guess that might be the reason.
I know that you looked at Dame Kelly Holmes, and you spoke to her, and she gave you a little bit of advice. She's somebody that actually, when I was younger, I massively looked up to, and I remember when she won gold, and I was just a junior athlete, like on the track, and I remember looking up to her so much. And I know that she's spoken to you about the difference between, I don't know, how much psychology and the mind plays in performance. Can you talk us through that?
I don't think I've actually had a proper conversation with her before.
Right, let's sort that out then.
I know. I've listened to her on a lot of podcasts. I think I might have met her briefly a bit when I was a junior athlete, but yeah, she was one of the biggest inspirations for me growing up. I think that seeing her win in Athens was the moment where I was like, I want to be an athlete. Like, this is amazing. Just seeing how everyone reacted to her, the crowds, the public, like everyone. I was like, wow, that's absolutely amazing. And just seeing how much it meant to her as she crossed the line. I was like, wow, I'd love to kind of feel that emotion one day. So yeah, she's a huge role model for me growing up.
Yeah, because she talks so much about the mind and about how it's, you've got athletes on the start line, for example, or in the line in competition in high jump, and they've all trained to such a high level. So what's the difference? Is it mind?
Yeah, that's the thing that was really interesting to see her say, because she was, I think I heard her in a podcast and just kind of say that everyone, say for the 800 meters, everyone's kind of run around the same time, and the reason the person who wins is because it's like 80% of the mind. It's a really interesting one, because I guess once you get to that top level, everyone is pretty much on a level playing field in terms of jumps and their ability. So yeah, I guess it kind of has to come down to the mind. It has to come down to you not getting distracted by your other competitors and just kind of staying in your lane and just really keeping faith in your ability compared to everyone else's. So yeah, the mind is a huge element of it once you get to that like top level.
I know you've been studying psychology, so you've had that. You're in your final year, so you've added that to the pile and everything else of the 1 minute is a competition, 1 minute is there's not. And I can imagine studying's been strange. But do you implement the things that you learned in psychology into your life and performance?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of the things I was doing anyway, I'm now learning about in a way, like mental imagery and visualization and stuff. Something I just kind of did and didn't really understand the effects of it. And then actually learning about it and like neuroscience and just understanding like the parts of the brains that fire when you like do imagery. And I think that encourages me to do it more, because I actually realized there is like a scientific benefit of it. So yeah, it's been really interesting. But yeah, in final year I've got exams next week, and I was kind of hoping I was competing this weekend because I got a 24-hour exam on Monday, and I was like, oh, it would be a rest day, but now it's a training day.
You got a 24-hour exam?
Yeah, it's really weird. I think it's because they're remote and people are going to be in all different parts of the world.
Right.
So and rather than just giving us a 2-hour exam window, they've given us a 23-hour exam window instead. So yeah, it's all just really odd at the moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. And with yourself, do you get any kind of self-doubt or I think I've asked so many athletes that, and I think everybody says the same thing. I mean, I think everybody does in person as well. Yeah. How do you combat that? Because I think when I've worked with young people, it tends to be the thing that they ask me, and you're kind of like, yeah, how do you overcome that and try and like impart advice to somebody who's younger, right? How do you deal with it?
I think obviously I'm not an expert in dealing with it, but I think the way I try and deal
I don't
with
think
it,
any of us are.
the way I try and deal with it is kind of just looking at the facts and just say I'm like have a bit of doubt going into competition or doubt over, say I've had an injury or something and doubtful that I'm gonna come back and be able to train and compete the exact way I want to and had before. Yeah, it's just kind of like looking at the facts and just thinking, right, well, I've put myself in a position to do all the training I can and just do everything in my power to make sure it goes well or I could do the best of my ability. I think say with like an injury, if you're doubtful you're going to come back, the main thing is like I'm gonna go to the physio and gonna like get that kind of like external validation as well that I can do it. So yeah, I guess a bit of external kind of helps as well.
Yeah, because it's about whether that voice in your head sometimes isn't necessarily true. It's just the thing that's doing the what ifs, right?
Yeah,
but it isn't actually like a fact.
yeah.
And you mentioned in an earlier answer heptathlon. You said that's what you did when you were younger. Is that something that, are you going to stick with high jump now, or is that something you're going to look at getting into? Because I think, I saw an interview with you a few years ago where you said it was potentially something you were going to do.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit undecided. Like I go through phases where I'm like, I'm definitely going back to heptathlon, and then I go through phases where I'm like, I definitely want to do more than just high jump. Like I absolutely love it, but I think from going from a multi-event background to just one event was hard. Like, and it still is a bit hard because I just love everything in the sport, and I feel like I just haven't really fulfilled my potential in other events as well. So I'm not sure if I'm definitely going back to heptathlon, but I'm definitely going to stick with high jump and then hopefully a few more events with that in the coming years. Yeah.
Does that affect how you approach high jump though? Do you know, because you kind of like, I feel I should do other things and I've got potential to do more events, and because you're multi-skilled across different disciplines.
Yeah. It's definitely something that has been a problem in the past. Like I've kind of so the thing with heptathlon is like obviously you've got 7 events. So if one event doesn't go well, you're like, right, okay, on to the next one.
Yeah.
And it's a great mentality because it's not like an all or nothing. It's like, right, okay, I'm going to do as well as I can in this one. If it doesn't go well, I'm go on to the next one. If it does go well, great. I've accumulated some great points, but still I've got to go on to the next one. I think my brain has kind of been wired into that, right, onto the next thing. Whereas in high jump, if a competition hasn't gone well, and I think that's why I've probably reacted so strongly in over the past few years to like one bad performance, is because for me, I'm like, that just feels like the end. Whereas before I was like, right, okay, I've got 6 other events to kind of rectify myself. So yeah, I think it has in the past, but now I'm just thinking, right, okay, I'm just putting everything I can in high jump. And yeah, that's kind of like the main thing. So yeah, I've definitely got better at it.
That makes complete sense, when you were talking through it, because obviously you've done that from a young age, whereas I think it'd probably be different if you went from like a single discipline to doing 7 different ones.
Yeah.
So looking towards Tokyo, it must be hard for you. How are you viewing it? Because some people are saying that they're just blocking it out of their head that it might not happen, and some are preparing for that, so then it's not a surprise if it doesn't.
Yeah. It's such a hard one. Like again, this weekend when everything was cancelled, there was then more speculation about Tokyo, and I think the headline was like, government official says that Tokyo is 100% going to be cancelled and they're preparing for 2032, and I was like,
yeah, I saw that.
It was just such a hard thing to hear, and I think it was on quite reputable news sources as well, so it wasn't just like some random tweet like fake news. So yeah, that was like, I mean obviously the thought had gone through my head like it may not be on this summer, and the closer we're getting to it and the worse the situation is getting, the more people are thinking, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen? But I guess for me, I'm like, that's just wasted energy, just having to think about, is it not going to happen, is it going to happen, it's just wasted energy. So for me, I'm just like, right, I'm just gonna do everything I can to I mean, firstly, I haven't even qualified yet. So for me, I'm like, right, the first thing I need to do is qualify for it. There's no point just carrying on talking about an Olympics if I'm not even on, well, hopefully going to be there. But that's probably my first priority. But yeah, in my head, I'm like, it's 100% going to happen. I know that might be a bit like, people be like, oh, but it's not 100% going to happen. I'm like, I obviously know it's 100%. I obviously know it's not 100%, but for me, it's so much easier to go through training and go through competitions thinking that it is definitely going to happen.
Yeah, you've got to have that in your brain, so
Yeah.
you give it everything.
Yeah.
You talked about qualifying, so how's that going to work? Because the competitions keep dropping in the lead up, and how important is it to have competition in the lead up?
Yeah, I think that's the hard thing, because like I kind of felt in a really good position to compete, and hopefully like the qualifying is 1 centimeter below my PB, so it's going to be like tough to jump it, but I kind of feel like I'm in a position where I've been doing everything I can to kind of get me there. So yeah, that's the kind of the next battle, is because it's not on me, it's not on my ability now, it's on can I get access to a competition. And we've got a European Indoor Champs this indoors as well. We've got that in March. So obviously we need to qualify for that as well. And the qualifying for European Indoors is the exact same height as it is for the Olympics. So again, that's going to be a push, and it's going to be we need the competitions, we need the opportunities to allow us to qualify. And luckily for field events, you can qualify indoors as well, whereas obviously like in 100 meters you can't do 100 indoors. So for us, we're quite lucky that if we jump it indoors, it does count for an outdoor qualifier as well. So yeah, hopefully these opportunities will crop up, so just got to keep ready for when they eventually do.
You know, Morgan, you said I've still got to qualify yet, and it's going to be a push, but do you really in your heart of heart know that you are going to qualify?
I hope I am. Like, I hope I am. I think there's a lot of things. I've had a really good winter's training, so I'm just like really happy with how that's gone. And it's gone well. So I'm like, I'm hoping that I can qualify, and obviously thinking like if the day goes well that I can. Obviously nothing's certain, but yeah, basically.
I know you can't. You probably don't want to kind of put it out there too much. What do you think? Do you think that, hopefully the athlete that will turn up, providing you qualify and it goes ahead in Tokyo, is different than the one that would have turned up last year at 2020 in terms of what you've learned over lockdown? Because at the very beginning of our conversation, you mentioned, the lack of facilities, which I think must be so much harder for a high jumper than somebody who's a runner, because of the skill involved in what you do. How much have you learned during that period, and what's the difference in the athlete and the person, the Morgan Lake that would have turned up in 2020 to the one that will turn up hopefully in 2021?
Yeah, I feel like completely different. I think after Doha, I was pretty burnt out, and I was just kind of like questioning if I still wanted to kind of like do the sport and do high jump anymore. I was just so upset by that 2019 year. I think because it starts on such a high. I jumped 197 in my first competition, and I was like, right, it's going to be the best year. And then it kind of just had injuries and family things, and I was like, this has just not been the year I thought it was going to be. And yeah, after Doha, I was just like, okay, I just feel completely burnt out. But I was like, I just need to be in Tokyo. Like, whatever happens, I just need to be there. And every session, it was literally all about the Olympics. Everything, wasn't really enjoying training. Everything was just very pressurized, and yeah, everything was just kind of like a push, just so I could qualify and make the team. Whereas once it got postponed and things kind of settled a bit, I had such a different mentality going into this winter. I just want to enjoy training again. I just want to enjoy competing, and just not put pressure on myself. And I think that's allowed me to have a really good indoor winter training period, because I've just kind of like really enjoyed my training, and just been a lot more relaxed attitude going the prospect of the Olympics. I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever I can, and if that equates to a qualifying, if that equates to the Olympics, then that's amazing. And like obviously that is my ultimate aim, to be there this year. But yeah, just not putting that same amount of pressure on myself has been really important.
Yeah, that's understandable, and you can see how after that performance in Doha, you kind of had those questions, but then also it was almost like, well, no, I'm going to prove it in Tokyo. What made you go, no, I do want to do this, and I am going to continue? What do you think it was? What drives you?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of time, to be honest. I think it was hard because straight after Tokyo was such Doha was such a late championships in the season, so usually you kind of peak around August time, and I think it was late September, early October, Doha, and then you had a really short winter training block straight into indoors, and everything just felt so rushed, and like you never really got a break. So for me, I felt like I never really deloaded and just kind of had that break to kind of love the sport again and love the event again. So I think having a bit of time off and just that when the world kind of stopped in lockdown 1, and just having that reflection on the sport and just how much I loved it, that was probably what brought it back again.
Yeah, because I imagine you don't get a lot of time, and that was almost like forced time, I think, on a lot of us as well. So to wrap us up, what would you say to any young athlete out there as advice?
Probably the main bit of advice, it's kind of advice I'm giving myself now, it's just kind of enjoy yourself and just enjoy every minute of it and just do as much as you can. When I was younger, I just did every sport I could, just did netball, tennis, hockey, everything I could do, and just kind of found the enjoyment in sport, and then specialized as I got older. So I think, yeah, the main thing is just to enjoy it and make that the priority, and then kind of like specialize in what you want to down the road.
How did you get into heptathlon and then high jump then? If you did so many different sports, how did you narrow it down?
So I got into heptathlon. Yeah, I was kind of like, I was doing a lot of sports, but athletics was always the one that I enjoyed the most. So I was doing swimming quite a lot, but obviously that was quite like taxing on my body, like waking up early mornings and swimming, and then trying to do athletics in the evening. Like, it was just, they just didn't complement each other. So I stopped swimming and just was mostly just doing netball and athletics. And then but yeah, athletics was always the route I wanted to go down, and obviously heptathlon just being so demanding, I was like, I'm gonna have to stop netball at this point and just carry on with athletics. And yeah, I was doing heptathlon multi events until Tokyo. I was actually trying to qualify till Rio. I was trying to qualify for the heptathlon in Rio, but I didn't make it that year, and obviously got there for the high jump instead. And then ever since then, I've been doing high jump at the major championships, still kind of doing heptathlon training. But in 2018, I decided just to focus on the high jump and hope to come back to heptathlon at some point.
And what advice would you give to anyone out there at the moment that, I don't know, maybe goalposts are moving quite a lot, things are really uncertain? I think that's a lot of us at the moment. Is there anything else other than control the controllables that you've learned in your time as an athlete so far, very young athlete, and also with the performance mind coach? Or is control the controllables the one thing that you would advise people?
Yeah, obviously that, but also I guess having smaller goals as well, not just having that huge long-term goal, just having small short-term goals, so you can kind of feel like you're achieving things on the way to that big goal. And that can literally be anything. So I think that's quite a nice way of looking at it, and just kind of feeling like you still are accomplishing things and you still are making progress, even if the bigger kind of goals are changing in a way.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you're kind of so focused on the big fat mission at the end of it, aren't you? That you know you don't realize there's steps to get up to there. And one final thing I have to ask you, I normally finish on that question, but what goes through your mind when you do hear that, and then it gets quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker? Is anything go through your mind when you're about to jump?
So before I jump, I guess that the claps and the extra energy, I'm like, you just kind of feel like everyone wants you to clear the bar, and it's just like everyone is there helping you. So yeah, the claps are really, really important because it just, yeah, it gets the extra energy levels, and just everyone, you just kind of feel like everyone's backing you, everyone wants you to succeed, and it's like, yeah, a really nice environment.
Good. Did you like my attempt at trying to do it? Thanks so much for your time, Morgan. It's been absolutely great to speak to you. Thank you so much. I'll give you a little clip now. And good luck as well.
Thank you.
And I hope that I'm sure you will qualify, and I really hope that it does go ahead. And good luck as well for Europe.
Yes.
Yes.
Over
Thanks. Thanks, Morgan. I hope you're enjoying the series so far and you enjoyed listening to Morgan there. And there's loads more episodes coming up. Make sure to subscribe so they go straight into your podcast feed. And remember to visit sportinglife.com ahead of the rest when it comes to unbiased opinion and sport analysis. Thanks again for listening. Take care, and we'll speak very soon.